I don't see us India being able to power this kind of growth without being in control of some original innovation here.
There aren't real barriers to being able to do world-class innovation from here in India. I think the primary barrier is, are we setting the bar too low? What we often lack is that courage, those guts to go after problems that have never been solved before. As I went to the US, the primary difference that I saw was that people were willing to set very, very ambitious goals. As I came back to India, I found researchers picking problems that they knew they could solve. You have to go out of that comfort zone. Just visiting some of these IITs, as I interacted with some of the BTech students, what was very disappointing to me in talking to a lot of the computer science BTechs is that they're just taking the easy way out and almost like a bhed chal.
So you give India a fighting chance that next 4 or 5 years we might have something which is globally competitive?
Yes, as long as we
Hi Manish, welcome to SparX. It's good to have you here. I think you are quite in the middle of things, all things AI. So I think really, AI is something that everyone is scratching their head about, figuring out what needs to do. And I think you, at least, I think you have you're a pretty deep thinker in this area, and as well as you have a pretty unique perspective. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. But I want to start with, there are very few people in the world who work for a boss who is Nobel Prize winner. What does what does it translate into the kind of problems you guys sign up for at DeepMind? What kind of attention span you have for problems, etc.?
Thanks, Mukesh, for having me. I mean, it's quite wonderful to have to be working for an organization, right, where the co-founder has won a Nobel Prize. Demis has been like very focused on kind of building a solution to artificial general intelligence, but also not just like building intelligence, also using it to solve what he calls root node problems. So think of it as, let's say, if you think about, let's say, the knowledge tree, is there a problem closer to the root that once you solve it, it will unlock solutions to many others?
So what are some of the root node problems that capturing your attention, DeepMind's attention?
Yeah, so of course, there is this whole focus on building these models that are capable of human level intelligence, right? Artificial general intelligence. So that definitely continues to be like a defining mission for the organization. I would say we in India are also very focused on how do we make all of these AI models work for everyone on the planet, right?
Yeah.
Not just the privileged few, especially just privileged few in the West, right, who have taken the lead in developing these models.
Yeah.
And what we saw fairly early on in our journey, right, as we started our journey as Google Research India about 6 years ago, was that there are very significant gaps. On one hand, these AI models are becoming extremely powerful. On the other hand, when you look at kind of how a user, let's say in India, might need to use those models, let's say asking the question in their native language or whatever, in an accent that the AI model may not understand, there are very significant still barriers. Our team in India in particular has been very focused on how do we make these AI models really inclusive.
Do you think it'll be so obvious, or is going to be like slowly boiling the frog that it will just happen and we will not even recognize because we are getting, see, whatever was impressive about GPT or Gemini 6 months ago, now I get frustrated. Why don't you understand? And so on. So with AGI, I think, what do you think? Is it going to be step jump or incremental?
Yes, you can be sure there's so much of hype. You can be sure that when companies achieve AGI and believe they have achieved AGI, they will not sit quietly. But I do tend to think that we are making a lot of very steady progress, and there will be, even before we achieve, let's say, what we might consider true AGI, AI is going to be extremely beneficial, right? So already we are seeing so many different ways in which it can be used to tackle real world problems. So I think we will see benefits well before whatever, we say, okay, yes, we have now reached that point.
If you look at the progress of capabilities in of these models over the last few years, it's been staggering, quite exponential. But at some level, we are also aware that pretty much all the data on the internet is exhausted. What do you think, over next coming years, is it given that the exponential growth will continue, or the scaling laws will run into some limits and kind of waiting for algorithmic breakthroughs, which may happen tomorrow, which may take 10 years? I don't know. What's a good way to think about that?
So first of all, I wouldn't say that all of the data that we could ever use to train these models has been exhausted. Yes, maybe the easy one, right? Maybe the low-hanging fruit, right? Wide web. But if you think about the real world, right? There's so much of planetary data, right? Weather, let's say environmental readings and so on. Not to mention all kinds of experiments, right? That physicists do and so on. Or the data for the universe, there's still a lot more data, right?
Okay.
That has not been still captured and used by these models. So that's one. Ultimately tackle the problem of reasoning in these models. There's no doubt, I mean, the kind of reasoning capabilities they are demonstrating today is astounding. The way these models, right, from our Gemini thinking model has achieved gold level performance in the International Math Olympiad. Recently, there was the ACM's International Programming Contest for college students. It's well beyond, at least, okay, I mean, I'm not a high bar, but yeah, I certainly can't imagine, right, being able to tackle many of these problems at the same level, right, that these models are able to do. So it's already extremely impressive. But yet, a lot of these capabilities are still very brittle, because on one hand, you solve such tough problems. On the other hand, you also fail at some very, very simple problems that even a high school kid would be able to solve. And likewise, I mean, researchers have been also theoretically showing certain limitations of the transformer architecture, that there are certain kinds, computations or functions that, the transformer architecture would not really be very good at.
What is the most impressive thing you have seen these models do that impressed you, that you probably few years ago thought might not be feasible?
One thing which I was extremely impressed by was recently some work from our science team, and they working with some researchers from Imperial College. I mean, the co-scientist model, right, that they developed, working with those scientists, that model was able to come up with hypotheses, with scientific hypotheses related to, again, antimicrobial resistance, right, of antibiotics. I mean, to me, for the model to be able to come up with these scientific hypothesis, right, that you can then further try and validate, that was quite mind-blowing to me.
No, that's incredible. And I think, I know you are organizing a conference also in the, I think, coming week to explore the potential of AI to accelerate scientific research. I think I am also personally very excited about that. There are hopefully a lot of opportunities for India as well. And there are a lot of both root node as well as close to root node problems, which are, far from solved. So hopefully these developments will help us get there faster. I'm tempted to ask a lot of follow-up questions around that, but I'll come back to it. Let me just step back, and Manish, let's zoom out and look at a little bit of your career trajectory. You have found this sweet spot after your PhD, etc. I was recently reading this book called Idea Factory, which is a history of AT&T Bell Labs, and it was started, I think, formally in 40s, something like that, late 30s, 40s. Over a period of time, I think Bell Labs won something like 7-8 Nobel Prizes, more than what India has done in sciences. There was 3M Research at some point, which did a lot of pioneering work in materials science. Right now, you are at the forefront of what DeepMind is doing, and a big part of DeepMind charter is not necessarily directly connected to Google's mission, or maybe mission perhaps, but not necessarily a P&L of next few years. What does it take to create that kind of environment? What is your understanding, having worked with all these research environment, for a company to be able to say, we are going to hire world-class researcher, give them what they need. Yes, they need to produce something which benefits the company in the long term, but there's also freedom to what you're saying. If you find the idea interesting, go pursue it there are, I'm assuming, no quarterly OKRs that needs to be met in that environment. And the reason I asked Manish that question is it's very pertinent from India point of view.
Right.
Ultimately, I mean, we have large companies. We have companies of every possible scale. There are companies with $10 billion of annual profit as well.
Yeah.
But if we ask what is the quantum that's going to research, what is the even precursor of DeepMind or Xerox Spark here, it's very hard to see.
Yeah, no, that's a very, very important point, right? So first and foremost, I believe this frugal mindset, right, that we have always had and held as a virtue, perhaps we need to overcome that because even when companies become very profitable in countries like India, we have seen them spend a very small percentage of their revenue on research. So I think, first of all, that mindset has to change. B, you have to, again, get much more ambitious. A lot of times, I mean, we kind of target problems that we know we can solve. You have to go after problems, right, that are worthy of solving. Even if, let's say, you have no known path, right, today to solving those problems. But you may have a hypothesis, right, that here's an approach that I can take to solve those problems. So I think what we often lack is that courage and that those guts to go after problems, right, that have never been solved before. And often that requires a willingness to fail, which we sometimes lack, right? We are often very focused on how do we get a return on investment, a positive return on every single investment that we make. And companies have to be willing, right, to fail, to have some of those investments fail, but in the aggregate, you're likely to get much bigger return than if you don't.
So in this context, and let me also state the numbers. India spends about 0.7% of its GDP on R&D. I think US is close to 3% and China about 2.5%. In percentage aside, most of those countries, private R&D expenditure is somewhere between 60 to 70%. India, that is about 25-30%, which means while the overall aggregate number is small, bulk of that heavy lifting is done by the government.
Right.
So industry share is really minuscule. Now, let's frame that as a what's the phrase you
Root
use?
node problem?
Root node problem. At what level it needs to be solved? What will it take? It requires some kind of inspired CEO or board, or perhaps somebody who is both a strong academician, researcher, as well as Vikram Sarabhai type of person or Homi Bhabha type of person who knows also how to tell a good story, raise a lot of money. Where does it get solved?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I would like to see it tackled at multiple levels. So for the large and successful companies, I would say ask the CEOs to introspect. Yes, while they are being quite successful, right, often in the Indian market, why aren't they technology leaders? And do they have, again, like amazing kind of, in some sense, moats, right, where there is a certain technology, right, that is making them clearly far better than competitors. And if you really want to be in that situation, right, in that happy situation, you have to now start spending on such research and development. I have a lot of hopes from the startups, at least the area in which I've seen startup founders being the most ambitious. I mean, this is more of a layman's opinion, is in the space technology. So it's been very heartening to see startups willing to say, okay, we'll print 3D rockets or we'll launch the kind of hyperspectral imaging satellites that have never been launched. I would like to see more of that happening, right? In mainstream technologies and very, very impactful technologies like AI. Would love to see startups, right, aiming for the kind of AI models that will be globally far ahead, right, of others. So we haven't seen that level of ambition yet.
Let's talk about more because I want this message to resonate a bit. First of all, what we'll do is in this part of the episode, we'll just put some facts about the companies which make $1 billion or more of profit in India. I don't know the number, but I'm assuming there are at least 30, 40 in that ballpark, I think. And a lot of those companies might be in FMCG or financial service. We know HDFC and Axis Bank and ICICI, they all make way more than $1 billion of annual profit. Some others. And if you were to talk to their boards or CEO, Manish, what will your message, let's say I have a company which is making $1 billion of profit. Should I think of spending 20, 30, 40 million dollars a year? Why? It may not give me any return for next 5 years. How will you frame the case?
Yeah, I would say maybe just look at, let's say, AI as a technology, because there is already enough evidence that AI is going to transform every industry. It is transforming every aspect of the world. So I would tell the board, at least start investing, right, in AI related research, and try to come up. You can figure out what goals make sense for your company, but set a goal, right, where your team is coming up with certain breakthrough that will give you a unique advantage. If you succeed, right, you can take your profits, right, from maybe of the order of a few $1 billion to far more. Look at some of the largest technology companies. And on the flip side, if you don't, there's also a good chance, right, that there will be other competitors, right, who would kind of make your company and some of your products obsolete over the coming years. So that would be my message to some of these
And
large
look,
corporations.
Yeah, and people who may think, this discussion is just unnecessarily fear mongering need to look no further than IT services companies. While it has been a crown jewel of what India has produced, brings it in $300 billion of FDI, but at the pace at which AI is getting good at writing code, it's anyone's guess is how much of that stuff can get automated. And that's an example of the IT service industry has generated a humongous amount of profit. If I'm not mistaken, still making about $25 billion of annual profit. Most of it goes out as dividends to shareholders, which is great for today. But what about the fact that today Cloud Code and Gemini and Cursor and all these guys, all these tools are getting so good at writing code?
So I think, for IT services companies, at least get out of that mindset of only doing work which is billable, right? Go beyond that and invest. Put some part of your earnings, right, into investments where you are developing technologies to future-proof your business.
Manish, I have last 12 to 18 months, I have seen you many different forums on stage. And at some point, you talk about ambition, and I see you get very passionate. कि यार ambition नहीं है. Just one more time, what is, where are you coming from? Exactly, what are you trying to say when you say कि ambition नहीं है, होना चाहिए?
So, see, if you look at talent, right, there's no shortage of talent.
Yeah.
So, why is it that we are not achieving, right, some of those breakthroughs right here? So my experience, right, all along has been, as I went to the US, the primary difference that I saw, right, between kind of the environment that I'd grown up in, which was a very conservative environment and so on, was that people were willing to set very, very ambitious goals. And even as I came back to India, I saw extremely talented people, but a lot of times, even in a research lab setting, I found researchers picking problems that they knew they could solve. So you have to go out of that comfort zone, right? Because yes, when you pick problems that you know you can solve, it drives you towards incremental progress. If you really want to come up with breakthroughs, you have to get out of that mindset.
Yeah, I think we have shared stage at many events and we kind of lament about similar topics. Whose problem this? कौन solve करेगा ये?
It is up to us, all of us. So I can say that look at some of the innovations that have, for instance, come out of our team right here in Bangalore. Look at some of this work on Matryoshka representation learning and then applied to transformers. We call it matformers. First known instance, right, of how these foundation models, we are able to add elasticity to them, reducing both kind of training time in aggregate, because as you train one model, you get so many different size models trained, but then also inference time efficiency, because now you can deploy this one model and then at runtime decide, okay, would a smaller model make more sense on this simpler problem? So that's one example, right? And likewise, there has been work on, again, making these models really work well for this broad diversity of languages, dialects, and kind of start to understand different cultures and so on. So we have shown already, right, that when people write, I mean, there aren't real barriers to being able to do world-class innovation from here in India. I think the primary barrier is, are we setting the bar too low for ourselves?
What about some people will say that at Google you have access to infinite amount of data, infinite amount of compute. If there is a bold startups by definition at best will have few $1 million of funding to begin with, or even a corporate R&D setup. Let's say there is a bold CEO who says, I'm going to put $10 million a year behind some ultra cutting edge research. What can they do with that? Where do they start?
I would say let those constraints be, I mean, let those be constraints that make you innovate. Because often, right, some amazing innovations, a lot of these innovations, right, that I'm talking about, they came out of looking at constraints that if you only have limited, for instance, some of this work came out of looking at how would you make AI models run on mobile devices, which have limited compute and limited memory.
Yeah.
So sometimes just thinking about how you would deal with constrained situations push you to come up with innovative methods. So let's say you set that constraint that you have to, whatever, within X amount of money, you have to come up with whatever the best AI model. Perhaps that constraint will inspire you to be then innovative. I'm saying at least set that goal of achieving something that's truly revolutionary.
And the more ambitious and bolder you get, the probability of individual efforts working out also keeps going down.
Yes.
So there's the other part of somewhere being comfortable with a lot of collateral damage. Google, I don't know how many projects die there, quite regularly, I assume. They've been from Google Glass and not recalling, but even autonomous car for a longest period didn't go anywhere and so on. So that's the other aspect of this, right? To be able to
so you have to have the right culture in your organization where, in some sense, right, you are willing to not just tolerate but celebrate these failures as long as they failed for the right reasons and then learn from those failures.
Yeah, I think both of us are well aware that there are a lot of very both capable and well-intentioned people in the government now working on a variety of initiatives, etc. And some of those are starting to, there's a lot of significant announcements being made, and as well as some project investment, etc. But is it fair to say, Manish, that this is in some ways very critical juncture for the country? If we don't get our act together about research and deep tech, the whole India growth story at some point can also possibly peter out. I don't know whether I'm reading too much into this, but from first principle thinking, I don't see us India being able to power this kind of growth and global competitiveness and strategic autonomy and employment of so many people without being in control of some original innovation here.
Yeah, so I really agree with that. And I think there is amazing potential, right? For given so much of talent and given the need, I'm actually more optimistic that yes, we will see many more now examples, right, of breakthroughs coming out of India. But I think this is, in some sense, right, this should be a call to action.
Yeah.
That we can't just kind of sit on our laurels or whatever on things that have worked in the last few decades. We have to up our game.
And on the optimistic note, let's assume somehow start to align better. What will be the concrete evidence? Like, for example, AlphaFold is something which is pretty much, it was a bang which I heard around the world level of breakthrough or GPT movement. I almost think we should, to your ambition point, maybe we should aspire for that as well, but that's going to be a journey. But what will give you, not small green shoots here and there, but something significant, again, I want to say India's Nobel Prize, but that's also perhaps many decades away. I'm not even able to bring myself to say first $1 trillion Indian company, perhaps in our lifetime. What can we see in next 5 or 10 years, which will give us that is a role model outcome we want?
I would say even if the Nobel Prize, so let's just take AI for science. Uh, I think that's an area where we need a lot more investments in India, and we need to start to look at organizations, including private companies. I mean, if you look at many companies, right, they have businesses
Yeah.
that would benefit enormously
Right.
from some of those scientific advances. I would say if we invest in those, AI technology is advancing at such a fast pace that I don't think it is inconceivable, right, for there to be at least Nobel Prize worthy advances in science happening in within the next 5 to 10 years. Uh, yes, the actual recognition may come later. I mean, there have been so many instances, right, where the discovery happened, whatever, in the 40s, the recognition came much later. Einstein never received a Nobel Prize, right, for his theories of relativity. So at least where you can see that, yes, this is a true breakthrough, because often people are able to appreciate.
So you are saying scientific breakthrough is perhaps one area where we can see and there is a lot of potential acceleration with AI.
And with science, right, you have that, I think, that element of root node problem, right? That with one major scientific breakthrough, it can actually unlock so many areas of application that's definitely one class of problems that I think we need to pay more attention to. And there are so many other problems. I mean, if we look at the problem of learning, how do we make all of our children really become not just employable, but again help them thrive in the new world, right, where technology will always keep advancing. We look at healthcare. How do we take care of health of our entire populations, especially given the relatively kind of modest healthcare infrastructure, right, that we have? There are so many of these exciting, like very, very challenging problems that the nature of these problems, in some sense, requires real breakthroughs. So if we can go after these problems with that mindset, right, of not being shy of taking on those really, really tough problems, not just going for incremental progress.
And look, scientific breakthrough also requires your best and brightest students to pursue career in science.
Yes.
If you again look at West, a lot of people in their childhood gets inspired by watching Cosmos, by Carl Sagan. Richard Feynman was a household name almost. It's a physicist known, no business being so popular, and so many other examples of science being in popular culture. Where is science in our popular culture? How many times in a public forum we talk science? It seems like it's in just very esoteric academic communities where some scientists may gather and talk science, but it's just not part of everyday discourse through public broadcasting programs or popular science books or well-known science speakers who can straddle boundaries. It's where science seems to be a little bit absent or silent in
No, absolutely. And I know, Mukesh, you are making, I really admire a lot of the efforts that you're making to make people realize. So, I mean, I would say, see, despite all of this, look at like the kind of scientists we have still managed to produce as a country, right? Look at the way C.V. Raman or Satyendranath Bose or Bhabha and Sarabhai, right? Look at what they accomplished with like just very, very tough environmental conditions. If they could achieve, right, those kinds of breakthroughs, I think today with the kind of power of technology that we all have available at our disposal, I think there's a lot more today people can achieve. But I agree with you that there's a need, right, for us to promote greater, in some sense, joy in scientific pursuit and so on amongst our students in particular. And one thing I would maybe call out, right, some of the, for instance, just visiting some of these IITs, as I interacted with some of the BTech students, what was very disappointing to me in talking to a lot of the computer science BTechs is that they're just taking the easy way out of, and almost like a bhed chal of following whatever their seniors had done. Because my senior had whatever followed the money in terms of algorithmic trading companies and so on. Nothing against those companies, I mean, one should be free to pursue whatever career choice you have. But I've seen literally, right, some of them after some years become very dissatisfied and kind of sometimes even talk to me. Like I recently had one of those engineers kind of say he wants to apply for our pre-doc researcher program. And I said, you're quite overqualified for that. But he wants to now pursue real research.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say to all of our talented students, right, don't just follow the greedy path, right? I mean, we know from computer science principles, a greedy algorithm often, right, isn't the optimal algorithm. So don't just pursue that greedy path to, okay, whoever is paying me the best, right, I'll go and take up that job. Take up something, right, that really challenges you.
And look, let's also frame it. People may think yeah, this is just general empty gyan, but let's look at two examples. When DeepMind was founded in 2010, Demis and other co-founders, they set this goal of solving intelligence. What was the profit motive? What was the line of sight to this greedy path? It could have taken 5 years, 10 years, forever, never. It was 2010. AI wasn't even something. It was
Yeah, it
2
was
years
a bad
before.
word in those days.
It was 2 years before ImageNet. It could in 2010 AI can't even recognize the image of a cat. Right? We're far from that moment. So that's an example of someone pursuing this for the sake of science. And yeah, in this case, all kind of laurels, piled up. Same for OpenAI 2015, where Sam Altman, I think Elon Musk and few others put $100 million each in a non-profit. Again, trying to, at the time, at least the mission was slightly more, I would say, more worthy, that building, not letting intelligence be controlled by big tech. But yeah, the story has taken a different turn. But leaving that aside, the motive at the time wasn't at all profit driven, at least at that point.
Yeah. So in fact, at a recent visit, I was telling some of the computer science students, look, take inspiration from some of your other colleagues, right, in other disciplines who are launching these space tech companies. Why aren't you doing things like that?
Yeah. Somewhere I think that, as you said, we don't need everyone to pursue a career in
Yes.
science, but
But
some
at least,
people, you may have genuine desire inside, but I think your point is you get carried away too much with the environment around you.
Yeah.
Just because
We
other
have
people-
too much of peer pressure.
Yeah.
Too much of this, supposedly societal pressure
Yeah.
that, okay, my parents want me to take up a job that'll make me earn well. But realize that those are not the only paths to success.
I want to bring back the conversation back to AI. Given there's so much happening, the nature of work itself, it's also changing. Right? What's your perspective on what does it look like for next 4-5 years? I'll also share the context where I'm coming from. Is I have worked in a certain pattern over the last 20 years. That pattern has worked very well for me. I was very comfortable. But 1 year ago, slowly things start to change. And just last time I programmed was more than 20 years ago. But last few months, I again picked it up. Now I go to just, Claude Code or Google, describe what I want. I put together my mockup through Lovable or Replit, other interfaces. And within few hours or even minutes, I have a functioning prototype that I feel very proud of. I can show it to other people, and communicating my ideas have become so much easier and faster. I'm realizing unless I reinvent myself, I cannot keep pace. So that's N of one. From your perspective, what do you think about the nature of work evolving in the coming years?
Yeah, nature of work will just change dramatically.
Yeah.
So already we've seen again that what humans can do alone is just completely dwarfed by what we can do together with these AI agents. And these AI agents are already kind of have these very superhuman level capabilities for many specialized kind of tasks. That capability is just going to become broader, right? At a much broader class of tasks. Being able to, I think, all of us as humans, right, we need to constantly kind of be willing to learn. And we have to look at technologies like AI as an indispensable partner. If we just put our head in the sand and just think of it as human versus AI, then we are kind of again kind of doomed. We have to look at ways in which we are able to utilize, right, leverage technologies like AI to take our work to a far higher level. And those levels, that bar of AI software, we just keep evolving.
Yeah. I'm increasingly hearing from companies that in their interview process, they're explicitly checking for AI proficiency. And that's something, most people who are in the workforce, especially younger people, if they don't recognize and don't embrace, their future will look pretty challenging for. And vice versa, if people are willing to be proactive, just learn. The good thing with AI is AI research is very hard, but learning AI is not hard. You have so many tools at your disposal. You just become proficient and then ask a question: how can I do something significant using this tool or whole array of tools, and keep pace with it? And you become suddenly that 10x or 100x employee that everyone will want. I think just going back to the country level. See, it's you briefly touched upon some of the pioneering work that you guys at DeepMind are doing. Obviously, your group is based out of India, and I know like it's been making a lot of consistent contributions. But what's your perspective on, maybe there's a two-part question, the state of AI research in India? Is India as a whole, are we making ourselves count in the progress of AI research in terms of, I don't know, top 1% peer reviewed papers that come out of India? And then part B of this question is, where are we on the whole foundation model journey? Are we heading towards where we'll just have to leverage models by OpenAI, Google, and others? Or there are possibilities at some point we'll figure out a way to have something competitive?
In terms of research, we definitely have these pockets of excellence. So we have a number of really, truly world-class researchers, both in academia as well as in the industry. And if you look at them, they continue to do amazing, very, very high-quality research. What we need is, we need a lot more of those people, right? Instead of those maybe tens of people, right, that we can think of, who we would consider truly world-class AI researchers in India today, we need to get that number to be maybe of the order of thousands. So one is that. The other is, I think, collectively, because a lot of times, right, in academia by its very nature, a lot of that work is more relatively individual-driven. And we have begun to see, right, with the government of India investing in these AI centers of excellence for, earlier it has been health, agriculture, and sustainable cities, and now another one being set up for learning. And at least you see now intention for the government to also start investing more in AI for science. Once we begin to have also kind of bigger mission mode kind of efforts, where a bunch of, again, people, researchers, right, get together and pursue bigger problems. And we talked about within companies, certainly take a lot of pride in the kind of work that our team at Google DeepMind India is doing. But when you begin to have more such organizations which are pursuing very, very ambitious problems, I think we need to, there again, set those ambitions very high and not be afraid of failures, and be willing to take on this pursuit of breakthroughs. So that's I think one part that needs to happen. What was your second question?
Foundational models.
So foundation models, again, it's very heartening to see, in fact, a number of startups as well as now efforts in academia. Like there's been that AI for Bharat effort at IIT Madras, the Bharat Gen effort at IIT Bombay. So it's, again, very heartening to see a number of now homegrown efforts at building foundation models, tackling challenges of all of this diversity of languages, dialects, accents, and so on, right, that we have. So again, I'm optimistic that over the coming months, you will begin to see some impressive results. And it's also heartening to see the government of India be willing to provide some funding support to these startups. So that has been, I think, a great development.
So you give India a fighting chance that next 4 or 5 years we might have something which is globally competitive?
Yes, as long as we have those very clear goals.
Uh-huh.
We shouldn't have just a mindset of, oh, I'm going to build the best model for whatever, this collection of Indian languages. Yeah, that's a good first step.
Uh-huh.
But you've got to have a goal, right, of creating a truly globally competitive
Yeah.
model.
And you mentioned possible application areas as well. Let's talk about some of those, because India is also a country of both haves and huge number of have nots, and
Right.
those divide this runs across pretty much every parameter you can measure. Let's start with health. What possibilities do you see? What is the optimistic scenario for health in India leveraging AI?
See, to me, the optimistic scenario has been that if we look at the healthcare systems across the world, every country recognizes that it's a broken system. Because what we have, the so-called healthcare systems, are really sick care systems, right?
Yeah.
The hospitals, they take care of you when you fall sick. So they're not really true healthcare system. So given that we have such limited kind of sick care systems, right, in India, I think it's a real need for us to build true healthcare
Yeah.
systems, right, where we incentivize people. And I know you've had even entrepreneurial efforts, right, in that direction, where we are able to both incentivize people to lead healthier lifestyles, because a huge percentage of the disease burden in the world, right, also comes from lifestyle diseases, much more than the infectious diseases, right, which have traditionally been the
Yeah.
big killers in India. So that is what makes me optimistic, that we have such a huge need, that that there is such a high need for innovation in this space at building true healthcare systems that A, encourage people to lead healthier lives, B, give them early warnings of risk factors, of risks.
Yeah.
Because in health, right, there is this saying, stitch in time saves nine. In health, it's really true.
Yeah.
That the earlier you act, the lower the cost,
Yeah.
as well as the better the outcome, right, for the patient.
Yeah.
So because we have such a huge need, I'm optimistic that we will have a lot more innovations in the healthcare space in
Yeah.
India.
And for us to make progress towards that need, where is the unlock? Today, we know nearly all patients who have access to GPT are already having a conversation. I know I do it all the time. Any health issue, I first talk to GPT, get a good mental model, and then I talk to doctor. And the models are already quite capable. You probably has preview of, perhaps in 6 to 12 months, they'll get even better. So it's mostly about building right applications, or we still need to improve these models and contextualize and build India-specific capabilities. What will make this whole ecosystem of AI-driven innovation in health kind of take off?
Yeah, so I think there has to be progress on all fronts. So I think there is still a lot of room, right, for us to build more capable models. The other is, I mean, at some point, right, they also need to become more personalized so that they're able to provide you that personalized advice.
Right.
And there is also a need to, again, ultimately provide that universal like assistant, right, to every individual. That is also engaging enough. Because it's one thing, right, for us to ask the model when we have a problem.
Yeah.
The other thing is where the model is constantly with you, right, and helping you
Yeah.
lead that healthier life. So there is still that gap that needs to be bridged.
Right. What are other areas where we can, on the application side?
Sure. I mean, other things that I would say, even in health, right, there are so many right now diseases, right? If you look at so many forms of cancer that still require much more effective treatment. So that's another area, right, in which we need a lot more advances where AI can make a difference. Other areas, I mean, I think practically any industry, any area that you pick, there is an opportunity for transformative difference. One that is very close to my heart is learning. Again, such a young population. So providing them the right kind of skills, again, just like we talk about shortage of doctors, there's likewise, right, a shortage of good teachers in a country like India, where again, AI can play a very, very important role. And that will become only more important. Learning will only become more important with time as technologies, right, become such integral parts of our lives, and technologies which are rapidly evolving, right, themselves, like AI. So there is already a need, and it will become even more acute, right, for lifelong learning. That your learning cannot just stop once you graduate out of your school or college. You have to constantly relearn. So learning is another major area. Then there are areas like agriculture, which have so far largely been untouched by technology, where again technology can make a huge difference, right? All the way from kind of unlocking use cases like loans and credits and insurance, reasonably priced insurance to farmers, and kind of making these government subsidy programs much more targeted, to precision agriculture and advisories and so on, right? That will allow farmers, right, to become or whatever, have far higher farm productivity, deal with crop failures, and all of that. So there are, again, you look at any area, manufacturing, again, there's so much potential for automation and taking manufacturing to a far higher level. So any industry you pick, any area that you pick, I think there are huge opportunities for us to achieve transformative impact.
Yeah, Manish, on the closing note, and I think I'm guessing you're probably, given that you think, breathe AI for your day job, what kind of picture we can paint about next 5 years or so in terms of, we talked briefly about AGI and we don't know when the AGI movement will happen. What is a likely scenario in 5 years? And I think what's back of mind is likely scenario is something so radically different than today that 2030 will look like a different world, or incrementally better than where we are?
No, I'm absolutely convinced 2030 would look very different from what 2025 looks like. I mean, already you look at what has changed in the last couple of years, right? The changes have been astounding. So I'm quite convinced that 2030 would look very different. So already we are beginning to see these very, very powerful digital assistants, right, that are available and increasingly, right, available to each and every one of us, that we are able to interact in our native language through voice, through very natural kind of communication style. So already, and these conversational agents, right, have available to them potentially like access to the entire world's literature, right? You talked about running out of that internet data. All of the scientific literature, right, has been processed by these models. So these are already very, very powerful assistants, right, that we have. Now you think about the kind of reasoning capabilities that these agents will have is going to continue to improve. And you look at now ways in which now you can start to apply some of these amazing capabilities of these agents. If we start to look at now tackling problems like all of these, learning, health, and so on, right? For a long time, I mean, this dream of a personalized tutor, right, for every learner, it looked like a distant dream. Today, it's no longer looking distant, right? I mean, we have both kind of some of our existing products and then further some of the prototypes that we have in our own lab give us that very clear line of sight to that becoming a reality. So I think as we begin to now utilize some of these very, very powerful models to now develop these transformative solutions, and also at the same time continue to improve some of the foundational capabilities, we are going to see a very different world in the next 5 years.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think the pace of acceleration here is just unprecedented. Very few parallels from the past. I think there is an opportunity, obviously, to solve some of the fundamental problems, but there is also possible falling behind if the opportunity is not met by the courage and ambition and right investment and so on. So that is going to play out. But Manish, I want to thank you for both taking the time for this podcast, but as well as, phenomenal work you've done throughout your career for really being at the forefront of leading science. You also spent a lot of time in AI when AI wasn't cool, or, working on high performance computing and so on, like a lot of leading cutting edge research topics, and you've built a that environment here in India. I think DeepMind and formerly Google research in India is, I think one of the premier research setup in the country. So you are, and I know you are publicly also evangelizing research, collaborating with a lot of academia, a lot of knowledge transfer, and so on. So I think it's a immense contribution to boosting of the research ecosystem in India. So thank you for that as well.
No, thanks. I mean, I feel very privileged. And I mean, for me, my job has always been made easier by the much smarter people that I always try to and end up hiring than me. So it's always very a privilege, right, to be surrounded by these amazing people. And my job is to just challenge them to go beyond their comfort zone. And I'd also like to thank you, right, for all your amazing efforts, right, to really both strengthen the research ecosystem in India as well as deep tech kind of entrepreneurial ecosystem and the cause of science in India. So thank you for all
Absolutely.
of your
We'll continue to collaborate on that, and looking forward to your event on AI for Science as well, Manish. Thank you.
Thank you.
At SparX, we aim to bring to you stories of exponential impact. We share in-depth analysis of what goes behind success stories. If you find our conversations interesting, you can join us by subscribing to our YouTube channel. You can also listen to SparX on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or any other audio platform of your choice. If you have any suggestions on who we should invite or what topics we need to cover, just let us know in the comments. We are always listening, looking for ways to improve, and keep getting better as we go along.